Okay, on behalf of the International Association of Geomorphology, I welcome all of the speakers, the participants, as well as the dignitaries of the International Association of Geomorphologists in this international webinar on the occasion of International Geomorphology Week. Before introducing our speakers, I would request our President of the International Association of Geomorphology, Professor Mauro Soldati, to say a few words. Professor Mauro.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sunil. I would also like to welcome all the participants in this 7th out of 9 regional webinars of the IEG, which are taking place during the 3rd edition of the International Geomorphology Week. This week has been going on very quickly and intensively. We had very interesting webinars from different parts of the world. We started Monday with the Africa webinar and went on with initiatives which referred to different regions of the Earth. So very stimulating talks and interesting pieces of research in geomorphology that were given to the audience. The week will continue after this event, which I'm sure will be successful as the other ones. And in fact, we are going to have another 2 webinars later on today and tomorrow. I'm talking about the Central Europe webinar and the Northern Europe one. Then the week will also continue with side events. The program is available on the website of the IEG, geomorph.org. Side events, the last one on the 8th of March, and it will be dedicated to women in geomorphology, to the research of women in and particularly by Professor Niki Evelpidou, who has proposed to the IEG to hold this 2nd edition of the workshop. So the program is really interesting. It's really very high number of speakers, many of young geomorphologists, early career scientists that have illustrated to us the results of their research. So finally, I would like to Coimbra conference. I'm referring to the International Conference on Geomorphology that will take place in Coimbra, Portugal at half September. The dates are 12th to 16th September. The conference will be preceded and followed by field trips and an intensive course for young geomorphologists. Grants will be available to join the event for young geomorphologists, and the call for grants will be issued quite soon, and the information again will be posted on the IEG website and IEG social media. We will soon have confirmation, hopefully, that the event will be in person, in physical person, and as you may know, it was postponed by 1 year because it was supposed to take place in September 2021, but unfortunately during the pandemic we needed to have this postponement of the event. So we are all thrilled to be all together again in presence, and I guess you are too. So I don't want to steal any more time to the speakers. I would just like to thank the participants, the speakers, and the coordinators of this workshop, our Vice President, IEG Vice President, Professor Sunil Kumar De, and our executive committee member, Ahmet Ertek from Iran. They did a great job in setting up the program. Our Vice President, Susan Conway, worked behind the scenes to set up all the program of the International Geomorphology Week and making the information available on our media as communication officer of the IG. So many thanks to all of you, and I wish you a pleasant day. Please consider that I will have to leave in less than half an hour because I will have to teach to my geomorphology students, but I will try to have a connection from the room and have them connected to your webinar so that they can have a feeling of what an International Geomorphology Week event is. So thanks again and have a good day.
Thank you, Professor Mauro Soldati, the President of the International Association of Geomorphologists.
Dear colleagues, good morning. I'm Ahmet Ertek from Istanbul University Geography Department. My presentation name is Anthropogenic Geomorphology and Examples from Turkey. Although not yet approved by the World Stratigraphy Association of the Geologists, from Industrial Revolution to the present, it is possible to say that new approach, a new epoch has started in order to protect our Earth's landforms intentionally and deliberately with their own needs, and to prevent accidents and disasters or to remove the damages. If you want this 11,000 years ago from gathering and hunting of human to the agricultural community by settling on the edge of the stream, you can start this period by getting acquainted with the environment of the human by creating set that aim to benefit from fresh water or to protect from floods and reorganized to their environment. However, with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the discovery of new continents using the steam engine and the discoveries and inventions, including the New World and new continents. Hence, human can be attributed to the discovery of the different continents. Thirdly, it can be based on the idea of dominating the earth by the death of thousands of people with the atomic bombs thrown in Japan 1945. One of the reasons of the end of the World War II. But
excuse me, Professor, your presentation is not moving.
World.
Professor Ahmed, your presentation is not moving.
Not moving? Sorry.
Yes, yes.
This is okay?
Yes, okay.
Yes. Lastly, the idea of humanity dominating the universe may be the idea of discovery of new worlds and discovery of the new planets that can be experienced in human beings in 1969, a footstep to the moon or the unmanned spacecraft sent to Mars in 2012. Start from where you begin. We can now say that there are new man-made landforms on the earth and in all parts of the world, and the different appearance of nature has occurred. This is the proposed new period for the reason it is known Anthropocene epoch, new human epoch. I will show some pictures, some pictures in the slide for example, left one filling the sea and new buildings and settlements, polders in Holland, and the agricultural terraces on the slopes, Southeast Asia countries, open diamond mine from Canada, and the connection with the oceans, Panama Canal, one of them is then, and then the Ordu Giresun Airport in Turkey. In this presentation, which has changed rapidly in the last 10 years in Turkey, and especially in Istanbul, it was followed by the earth surface and underground morphology, jointly carried out by the engineers of our country and different countries, and the traces of the Anthropocene. As the result of these, therefore, I would like to talk about Turkey's mega structures. Ordu Giresun Airport on the Black Sea, Çanakkale Bridge on the Dardanelles, and some of the Istanbul's mega structures and mega buildings. You know, the first airport built on the sea in 1974 as a result of the sea filling in Osaka, Japan, is Kansai International Airport. My first mega structure in Turkey, Ordu Giresun Airport, is the second airport in the world built in 2015 by filling the Black Sea. Second mega structure from Turkey, 1915, Çanakkale Bridge, which will connect Asia and Europe, will be open in 15 days later. Nowadays, it is the longest suspension bridge in the world, with the longest tower between 2,023 meters. It was completed in 5 years. In the last 10 years of the Istanbul megacity, it is the following headings of the mega structures. For example, Marmaray Tunnel, Euro-Asia Tunnel, Eurasia Tunnel, Istanbul Airport, Yavuz Sultan Selim Bosphorus Bridge, Çamlıca Tower, and therefore new Istanbul skyscrapers. I would like to firstly relation between the morphology and new buildings in Istanbul. Istanbul's morphology, firstly, secondly, morphology and new settlements, relations, and mega buildings, conclusion and results. Last census, 2020, in Istanbul province has 18% of the population of Turkey, but its surface area very small, 0.6% of Turkey, but 50% contribution of the economy of Turkey provided there. This gives them the importance and special position of the mathematics and the, as well as the geographical location, geological and geomorphological features conveys qualities of habitability between Asia and Europe. Therefore, a bridge between east and west of city from all the directions to be functioning, vitality, acquired mobility. Surrounding cities and towns, overflowing advanced economy, culture, arts, and education center to future be solutions to the problems of unemployment, people coming to the city, and increased settlement demands. However, this situation brings with it many problems: air, water, soil, noise and visual pollution, unplanned urbanization, transportation, health and water problems, earthquake, torrent flows, and tsunami risks are just some of these problems. One of the consequences of the presence of transition area of Istanbul, the city weather, a combination of different climate types, precipitation with the features of Istanbul city environment clearly separated. Annual rainfall increases from south to north, and this leads to shaping the natural vegetation. Istanbul is mainly covered with forests, while the northern part of European and Anatolian sites, province, west, southwest area come to the for part of agriculture and animal husbandry. The main feature Istanbul province in terms of geomorphological form, a low plateau. It's very low plateau. This plateau's name Çatalca Kocaeli Plateau. According to plateau slopes with 75% of land in the province of Istanbul, 16% of mountains, plains, and alluvial valley bottoms constitution 9% of base. This first geological area, basement rock, are main geological formation of Çatalca Kocaeli Plateau. You'll see the geological map of Istanbul province. And the solid bedrock is in this shape. Approximately 15 and between 15 and 20 kilometers east and west directions south of plateau, passing through and one of the active faults of the North Anatolian fault of the plateau to the effectiveness of watershed line northwest to southeast direction. Büyükdere Mount Kayışta rises slightly. Istanbul Strait, the plateau was established in two different ways that shaped in two rivers to the north and south oriented valleys. This place 8,500 years before present have suffered the eustatic movements and submerged the same as in the old valley, the Golden Horn. You'll see the Turkish population, Republic of Turkish population, first population census is 1927. Approximately 13,000 million, but nowadays 2020, when you look at the table at the end, 85 million people lives in Turkey. When you look at the Istanbul's population changing table, first census in 1926, you'll see the approximately 700,000 people, but nowadays 18 million people lives in Istanbul. Historical evolution Istanbul settlements area, when you look at the 1995 map of Istanbul, red area, Byzance era, Septimus Severus Theodosius era, in the historical peninsula and the Golden Horn. Ottoman Empire in 15th and 16th century, brown one, and the orange area, Ottoman period, 19th era, and the light orange area in the Republic of Turkey, 1923 and the 1950s. Last days and the 1997 and the light yellow area, and you'll see the perihellic area, all the country around the center of the country. I would like to show the plateau, especially the plateau area, the orange area, and mega buildings of Marmara, Sea of Marmara region. You'll see that especially the northern part of this region, Istanbul, Bosphorus, Street or Bosphorus, you'll see the red lines of the bridges, big bridges, and underwater tunnels. And also you'll see the right side of the Izmit Bay and a big bridge. And this last one is the left side, Çanakkale Bridge. 15 days later, it will open. When you look at the news reports, NASA, this is how Istanbul has changed in last 36 years plus 11 years. Approximately these are the 15 years, last 15 years. When you look at Istanbul, NASA published 2 satellite images of Istanbul, 1975 and 2011, revealing the changing is the city last 36 years. When you look at the left side of the map, only the first Bosphorus bridge showing this map. But when you look at the 2011 map, the NASA map, you'll see there's so many mega buildings in Istanbul. And also I added last 11 years this map, and you'll see so many mega buildings and mega structures in Istanbul. And then I will mention about these mega structures. First mega structure in Istanbul, Marmara Railway tunnel is opened 2013 and connected 2 continents under the Bosphorus. It has 4 stations. It connected between Beijing and London nowadays. The second mega structure, Eurasia Tunnel. Eurasia Motorway Tunnel is opened 2016 and connection 2 continents under the Bosphorus. It has 1 tube, 8-kilometer length with 2 flats. It's connected between Asia and Europe side of Istanbul, only 4 minutes, carried out 1 million people one day. Airports of Istanbul, highest capacity of Europe, 3rd Istanbul Airport, north side of Bosphorus. And 100 million people carried capacity per year. It's open 2018. First year of Bosphorus Bridge and surroundings, when it opened 1973, you'll see the Maslak and 4th Levant, 3rd Levant area, empty area, but nowadays you'll see all this area full of the new buildings, new province. This is the 4th mega structure in Istanbul, northern part of the Bosphorus, Yavuz Sultan Selim Bosphorus Bridge. It is open in 2016. When you look at the 4 years before, features of the 10 suspension bridges in the world with the longest tower wide, Akashi Kaikyo Bridge, and the Turkish mega structures. 4th one is the Osman Gazi Bridge, when it opened 2016. And the 9th one is the Yavuz Sultan Selim Bridge, open 2016. This is before the 3rd bridge of the Bosphorus, but nowadays is finished the 2017 days photographs. But these days, 15 days later, this table changing. And then I would edit the first one. I mentioned about my speech at the beginning. In 1915, Çanakkale Bridge, the first one is the longest tower, 2026 meters in the world. Another megastructure in Istanbul, Çamlıca Tower, a huge telecommunications tower, was inaugurated in 2018 on Istanbul Asia site. Aside from its practical use for TV and radio broadcasts, the Çamlıca Tower also has a cafe, restaurant, and a couple of observation decks. Authorities expect the structure, which bears the title of Istanbul's tallest, to become popular tourist attractions. The tower is 369 meters above the main sea level. New settlements types of Istanbul last between 30 and 40 years: skyscrapers, residence, shopping centers, satellite towns, Toki buildings, urban transformation, and ancient Istanbul houses. First picture, I would like to mention about 90s in Istanbul, empty areas, all the plateau surface you'll see. But nowadays, when you look at the same plateau surface, all this area, basically the Paleozoic massive area, has so many skyscrapers and the high residence. Some of the skyscrapers and the residence on Levant Plateau is elevation 200 meters. Safir residence, Levant highest building of the Europe with 57 floors. When you look at the top of these skyscrapers, you'll see the entrance of Bosphorus from Safir Roof Terrace, one of the anthropogenic highest point of Istanbul European side. In total, there are 120 skyscrapers and high-rise residence and 140 big shopping centers in Istanbul. Result and conclusions. Firstly, attractiveness. One of the most important capital city of the world. Secondly, established 2 continents. Thirdly, culture, art, and education, and also finance and touristic city. Reservations, transportation, seismic city, and crowded city. Results. As a result, the traces of Anthropocene, which is the face of Istanbul, which is an old cultural and industrial city, are rapidly changing and transforming into a mega city of culture, education, and trade. All these mega structures are bridging 2 continents, Asia and Europe. And also, so many mega structures will complete soon in Turkey. Thank you for your pay attention. I would like to last words: peace at home, peace in the world. Our founder, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk's words. Thank you very much, my dear colleagues. And also, I would like to thank International Association of Geomorphologists General Secretary, Professor Sunil Kumarde, and Professor Adil Sefer, my closing friends. Thank you. Many greetings from Istanbul and Turkey.
I would like to start with the name of Almighty God. I would like to thank you all for giving me the valuable time to present today. The title of my presentation is Mechanism Controlling Soil Landform. To start, it's better to define some special word. For example, piping collapse. Piping collapse divided into 2 different words. Callous depression, which develop when the soil surface smoothly lowered above a pipe with no break in the vegetation cover. The second group is sinkhole, which develop when the soil surface is suddenly interrupted. So we have break in the vegetation cover. Sinkhole divided into two different groups, single and multiple. When multiple sinkhole integrated together, a new structure or soil landform is created with the name of blind gully head. We say blind gully head because they are not connected with the drainage density. If this landform connected with drainage density, we will see the other form of soil landform with the name of gully head, which is a vertical drop in gully channel bed elevation. So based on this soil landform, we will have in our study area, we design four main scope for this study. Our first aim is regarding to the recognizing of the pathway of soil landforms based on the UAV drivers, especially drainage density. Our second aim is about assessment of soil properties affected piping development. The third aim is to estimate the geomorphic features of potential pipes based on the surface and subsurface investigation. And the last aim is regarding to the recognition of the spatial distribution and the relationship between collapsed pipes and gully heads in the study area. Here you can see that the study area, which is located in the northeast part of Iran, in Khorasan province. The name of the study area is Shula. This study area is about 65 hectares, and it is agricultural land. Geomorphologically, it is located in the covered pediment. Here you can see some example of soil landform in our study area. In this study, we try to record all soil landform using unmanned aerial vehicle. I mean, using the orthophoto image. So based on the first aim, we applied unmanned aerial vehicles in this study. The UAV had a camera with 12 megapixel resolution on Phantom 2. The number of photo was 5,000. The flight height was 200 meters, and the flight speed was 10 meters per second. The overlapping flight line was about 65%. Here you can see the orthophoto image that prepared using Pix4D capture. And on the bottom, you can see that the digital elevation model and its driver that is obtained from the UAV image. After taking a photo with UAV, we try to gather different soil samples from the area with gully head, with sinkhole, and without erosion in different soil horizon. And then we transferred all soil samples to the laboratory and start to analyze them. After the analysis, we obtain different values of soil texture, SAR, EC, pH, sodium, calcium carbonate, bulk density, and organic carbon. In the third part of this study, we try to find the potential of soil pipe under the surface and compare them with the surface one. So we applied the geophysical tool with the name of ground penetration radar. In this method, very high frequency ratio waves were sent into the ground, and the waves were reflected by hitting object and then recorded in the form of the mapping. At the last part of this study, we wanted to know that the spatial pattern and the interaction between collapsed pipe and gully head. So we applied summary statistic method that is divided into two parts: univariate summary statistic and bivariate summary statistic. As far as we know, the quantitative analyzing of the spatial pattern is an important part of the study of eco-geomorphological processes in different parts of the area, especially in arid and semi-arid areas throughout of the world with the spare vegetation cover. For this purpose, we applied the univariate summary statistic, including LGO univariate function for finding the spatial pattern. And also, we applied the bivariate summary statistic to know the interaction between these two soil landforms in the study area. Okay, this is all about the material and methods, and now I want to talk about the results and discussion about this result. As you can see here in the right part of the slide, you can see that the schematic map of channel network in the study area. We put this channel network on the orthophoto image and stated that the pattern of soil landform are completely in line with the pattern of channel network. So if we want to know that the direction of development of soil landform in the future, we can easily consider the channel network pattern in the study area, which is obtained by taking a UAV photo of this region. So we can say that the channel network can work as one of the main indicators, can help us to know that the direction of improvement of the pattern of soil landform in the future. Here you can see the horizon level attributes, soil physical and chemical properties symbolized with a volume fraction and color. As you can see here, we try to understand the differences between soil properties in the area with gully head, with sinkhole, and without erosion in different horizons. For example, on the bottom of this slide, in the left part, you can see the result of SAR that is obtained for the gully head, sinkholes, and for the area without erosion in different soil horizon. You can see here that in the area without erosion, we had the lowest amount of SAR in the study area. That is true, because we know that this factor is one of the main factors controlling erosional landform. However, this is so important, but we know that the occurrence of different soil landform in different regions is complex, and so we cannot say that the soil properties are the only factor affecting the occurrence of soil landform, because we know that other factors, including hydrological, including topographical factors, are affecting on the occurrence these erosional processes in conjunction with soil erosion, with soil properties. Okay, applying the methods GPR, ground penetration radar, showed us that the study area is covered with so many collapsed pipe under the surface. As you can see here, the black circle show us the area that inside we have the presence of collapsed pipe. By mathematically analyzing this soil erosion under the surface, we understand the ratio of surface on the subsurface, and then we decide about the result. We found that the occurrence of this collapsed pipe under the surface is highly more than the occurrence of the collapsed pipes on the surface. So we can say that we need to measure or to investigate different soil landform using the devices can help us to know that the factor affecting these erosional processes under the surface. And here you can see that the result of applying summary statistics to know the spatial pattern and to know the interaction between sinkhole and gully head. As you can see here, the result of different models showed us that the pattern of sinkhole in the study area is clustered. Also, the results showed that the pattern of gully head in this study area is clustered. As you can see here, the observed line is above the theoretical line, and it is outside of the Monte Carlo simulation interval that show us that the result is significantly clustered. The result of applying bivariate statistic in this region showed us the positive interaction between sinkhole and gully head. As you can see here, the theoretical line, I mean the white line, is above the red line. So it is this result is completely positive and it is significant. Based on this result, in the previous study, we showed that when our site has the high potential, we are in the healthiest state, and the spatial pattern of piping are dispersed. As the potential of site decrease, we will see the clustered pattern of the collapsed pipe in the study area. And in the critical zone, when we pass the threshold line, the piping collapses, especially the sinkhole, multiple sinkhole, integrated together, and blind gully head increase in the study area. And then in the lowest potential of the site, and I mean in the unhealthy state, you can see that the gully increased or the gully created in the study area, which is they stated that we are not sure that we can manage our study area. So we prefer to just let it go and do not manage this study area because it's not possible, or if it's possible, it's so expensive to manage. Okay, as a conclusion, I can say that understanding the geomorphological processes require an in-depth investigation of the interaction between erosional landform and their surrounding processes throughout them. We have to know this kind of processes with high spatial data and tools. And if we want to have a good result, we have to use the different statistical and physical-based methods to understand the main factor controlling these erosional processes. However, I want to state that sinkhole and gully head are not just as a threat. They are threats sometimes when they're damage to different structure, but some of them, in some part of the study area, and sometimes this kind of erosional processes can be considered as an opportunity. I'm talking about when this kind of process, this kind of landform increase biodiversity in different ecosystems. So we need to have a new vision and to have a new strategy about managing and controlling this system in the future. Thank you for your attention. If you have any question, I am ready.
Thank you very much. You hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. Thank you very much for a very elaborative introduction. I don't think it was necessary. Thank you very much. And thank you very much inviting for this presentation. So I have 20 minutes, right? Something like that. 20
Yes,
minutes.
yes.
Yeah. So my presentation is related to, on geomorphological hazard that occurred last year in Nepal. So I will simply try to, of course, maybe some of you already know about it, but still try to revisit the hazards and also, the involved processes, impacts, and yeah, a bit about future consideration if I will have time. Let me check, it's not moving actually. Yeah, so to start with the introduction, I think we all are well aware of geomorphological extremes and hazards. There are different types of hazards like landslides, clove, LDOF, debris, mud flows, snow, ice, rock avalanches, flash floods, slope instabilities, also erosion and sedimentations in the lowland areas, channel erosion, shifting. And there are, of course, ample examples of such hazards and losses in Nepal, and not only in Nepal, but mostly also in our region and also around the world, of course. There are many places. Yeah, Himalayan region is very fragile, so we see it more often, this kind of hazards. We're talking about Melamchi. It is a small watershed. You can see here, this is a map of Nepal. So you see it is located here. So you see the map of Melamchi watershed. And so it's not so big a watershed, but there was a very large hazard last year, if you have heard it, which is affected the whole Melamchi river system, but not only Melamchi river, but also it propagated downstream towards the Indravati and also even further downstream towards the Koshi river. Yeah? So this hazard still actually is very unknown how this hazard started. So there are several events. There are many, of course, many opinion and many hypotheses that it started. Some people say it's glacier outburst, but some say it's maybe some cloudburst which was not detected. So it could be anything, but that resulted in the failure of an old landslide dam, and also the huge amount of debris flow. Started with a huge amount of debris flows, flash floods. And of course, and flash floods mostly created by these temporary blocks and burst. And it went to the lower land part by eroding all the banks and destroying settlements, infrastructures. Very important infrastructures were destroyed, like the water supply infrastructure, and also there is a whole town called Melamchi was destroyed. So it was quite an impact. So usually we call them cascade effects. So it's an example of such kind of effects. So here you can see the profile of the Melamchi river, and we tried to make it zone. Of course, there you can see also many others. They try to distinguish the zones based on on the topography and also the impact we had, and also, of course, geomorphological processes. Yeah. So you see that in several places, and also the steepness is different. So in the lower part, in the upper part, it's very steep, just before where the disaster, basically started to occur. This place, mostly from here, and then you see up to the confluence, and then there are several confluences, of course, on the way, and then reaching the Melamchi Bazaar. This is this is a town which is in the confluence with Indravati, so it's a pretty low, you can see. So the change of this steepness is quite within 40-50 kilometers. And so you can see you can divide these zones based on like what kind of like more geomorphological processes and also the features. So mainly zone 1 where it all started, there you can see a lot of alluvial deposition, and also the zone with a lot of slope failures, erosion of old landslide deposits. I will talk about this in the analysis of pre-disaster geomorphological processes. So let me not. So what happened was that mainly you see here, these are lower land part. So here from here, these two tributaries and mainly Pemdang tributaries, there was a huge debris flow from Pemdang tributaries, and it's still not clear how it happened, caused the huge erosion in this. And then you see this is an old actually landslide dam. And before, of course, the river was flowing in these small streams were flowing like a fall. So, and this whole dam was eroded heavily. I can show maybe some pictures here. So you see here, yeah, there was two events, by the way, in June and then in July. So in the first event, they detected this kind of head cut, and later on it completely. So you see here a lot of sedimentation deposition coming from these streams, and then erosion of this whole dam. So you see here, yeah, this is detected after months again, and this is a very remote area. To reach there was not easy, particularly after first disaster. Before, of course, there was a lot of tourists going here for trekking, hiking purpose. So you can see like huge sediment load, which basically propagated downstream. We try to look at actually how much sediment could be here deposited because of this event, actually, particularly in the upstream part, this part, from where sediment was supplied downstream. And yeah, based on some simple calculations from the looking at the images, but of course, the image doesn't give the idea about the height. So we try to just look, okay, how the volume could differ, yeah, based on the deposition height or depth. And yeah, we also try to look at the images, and these are all available images analyzed by many others also. So how the erosion occurred in lower reaches. So you can see how these reaches before the disaster and after the disaster, you see widening of all these rivers, all along the river, the widening. There were a lot of settlements in these areas, lands. So you can see that how this red line shows like basically the extension of the disaster, when the river was flowing within actually this extent, while it started to flow whole, covered quite a large extent, which of course also caught the many settlement areas. So you can see that, after there was a large 2015 earthquake, a great earthquake, and that created in this catchment a lot of landslides. So you can see here already, these are all pre-disaster situation there in this catchment. So actually it's a very fragile catchment. You can see many landslides, and all these materials were deposited along the river system already before. So you can see when you go through this, you can see a lot of indeed shallow landslides and slope erosions, and see a lot of deposition along the river system. So basically all these materials were transported downstream during this event and disaster that created havoc particularly in the lower land part. So here you see this is the most disaster, like there is a settlement area here. Melamchi Bazaar. So, and this is also, here is a confluence, and this confluence create another problem, I think, that indeed led to a rising of flood levels, and so the town here was heavily affected. Let's look at it right in this confluence. Of course, this is because of certain certain flow and geomorphological processes in the bend and confluences. So it's the combination of bend and confluence processes. So you can see here. And of course, it propagated downstream. You can also see mesoscale features along these river systems, a lot of sediment bars and channels, alternate bars, braiding bars, even if you go downstream. So all kind of morphological processes was observed. And we can even talk about microscale features, which you can see if you look at the flood propagation feature, you see that it's also affected by a lot of bed undulation. So it can be, there could be indeed, because of very large sediment transfer from the upstream, from coarse to very fine, there is a large bed undulation that created, that also affected and impacted, mainly the impact on the flood level rise. So we try to actually analyze this based on also some DEM data and try to model them. So maybe I can talk about model quickly. So why we use usually models? So to replicate and predict geomorphological processes, of course, such as erosion, transport, sedimentation, and mass movement processes, to estimate hazard extents and intensity as an input for risk studies. Models are also helpful to carry out scenario simulations and analyses to provide parameters for design of measures, and also sometimes to check the hypothesis, and trigger discussions. But we also have to understand that models are just supplementary tools, and the interpretation of their results requires a lot of judgment. So this is not there, as they have a lot of uncertainties. So we use several types of models for the upstream steep areas where there was mass flow was dominant. We try to use a mass flow, multi-phase mass flow modeling tool. Our flow, maybe you know, some of you know already about it. And for the lower part, we try to use a morphological model, LFD. Of course, there are other tools that are used to analyze results and data. So we analyze, we had a hydraulic analysis. We did a rainfall and discharge analysis of what could be like the, minimum, maximum. So what could be the value of discharges. And of course, since there was no not high rainfall was observed during this event. So of course there were more other extreme events like the dam burst, so landslide dam burst, which of course created artificial discharges, artificial high discharges. So not because of rainfall, but because of some other extreme events. So we just did some scenario analysis to see. For example, this area was very critical where there's a large flood and heavy disaster and impacts. We try to look at how the flood level can be affected by the different morphological changes. So so we saw that all the channel will filled up during this event, and we saw if in that case how the flood level can be affected. So you can see like when we plot the flood, so we run the model with different morphological conditions. And you see how the flood level can rise under certain geomorphological condition. So we try to also look at the feeling of the downstream reaches, and for the upstream part, we try to divide the different reaches and then try to model them. This work is still ongoing. So we try to look at certain areas. For example, in upstream, we look like how this debris flow might propagate towards the downstream. Particularly in this where we think the origin was. So we are also trying to look and try to in the lower part how these mass might propagate further. So we can see also try to simulate how this filling of cross section feeling of the rivers can be replicated. So we just did some scenario analysis with some hypothetical conditions as well, because we didn't really know how much volume has been generated from the upstream areas. So, and also in the lower part, we try to look at the confluences and the impact of confluences from two rivers, how they may affect the changes in the particularly on sediment mass or mass flow. This combination of both water and sediment. So in summary, of course, the possible driving force, of course, for all landslides deposition that we saw could be indeed the instantaneous burst of already formed, small lake that's formed because of high flow, and then also the blockage, and then again burst of those flows. So, and then of course, the large changes in valleys. There are huge amount of deposition in the valleys now. Of course, there are many experts and people, they are looking at it more quantitatively, how much material was available there, how much it could be, and what could be also some future, effect of that. And also downstream processes that are more related to lower land processes like land erosion, sedimentation, and also the formation of mesoscale and microscale bed morphological features. And of course, there are actually a lot of activities going on now. We are not much involved at this moment, but I saw that there are some projects they are looking at, they are measuring, they are looking at, of course, different options, but it's indeed, we have to first quantify indeed what is the still we have to see the source, why it happened, what was the main cause. And for now, of course, how particularly in the settlement areas, in the downstream areas, how these changed morphological processes will and changed morphological conditions will affect in next coming monsoon season. And so there are, of course, many techniques and like I said, measurement techniques and also models, so that can be used to look at first what happened, and also do some predictions or judgment on what could happen and how to handle that, and also do some studies on the impact of the measures. So I think that this is it. Of course, in those images you see, we use a lot of materials which were freely available. So we're very grateful. It's very nice. We did this right after this disaster last year. So already right after disaster, there were a lot of materials were available. So it was quite good. I think that's it. And thank you for listening me. I hope that I finish in time.
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning from Italy. My presentation will move to quite a different topic from the previous presentation, because my presentation deals with the geomorphological heritage and geomorphosites. During the last decade, the interest for the heritage value of geology and geomorphology has increased dramatically in several parts of the world in relation to geoconservation, relation to geotourism and the geopark issues. Among the geoscientists involved in geoheritage studies, a considerable impulse to investigation on this topic was given at first by the physical geography and geomorphology scientific community. And in particular, in this context, in particular, the working group on geomorphosite of the International Association of Geomorphologists have acted as the principal arena for the development of a specific field of research on geomorphosite within the scientific community. So my presentation, this presentation aims to clearly define what geomorphological heritage is, its specificities and its characteristics, and the characteristics that make this heritage, the geomorphological heritage, unique and distinctive within the geoheritage. But let's start with the definition of geomorphological heritage and of the site that compone the geomorphological heritage, namely geomorphosites. According to Reinhard, who is one of the pioneers of the on the study of this topic on geomorphological heritage, can be defined as, can be considered as a set of landforms worthy of being protected and transmitted to future generations. So in this sense, the geomorphological heritage is so presented as part of geoheritage itself, a component of the natural heritage. But this definition needed to be completed, incorporating all the different dimension of the heritage concept, which is a very complex concept, that depending on personal and collective background and experiences. So the perception and the perception and the use that can be done of heritage can vary deeply from people, from person to person, or at least from group of people or community to other, according to their religious, to their belief, to the economic context, and so on. Heritage, and in particular geomorphological heritage, in this perspective, is a multi-temporal concept, as it is inherited from the past, his enhanced use in the present, and pass on to the future generation. So in this perspective, heritage and geomorphological heritage too is a transversal concept through time that represent our history, both man's and Earth history, and the link between these two components. Frequently, heritage is artificially divided in the natural and cultural heritage. Just think about the UNESCO World Heritage site, which are divided into natural and cultural sites. But this division, the artificiality of such division, of such a kind of division, is particularly evident in the concept of geomorphological heritage, which embraced from one hand, landform and processes that play a key role in understanding the history of Earth, but that embrace also landform and processes that have a relationship with the biological heritage from one side, and also with the cultural heritage from the other side. So an element, geomorphological heritage can be considered a site, for example, a large mountain change such as Dolomites, or large landscape such as Badlands landscape, or other more small sites, such, for example, a fluvial meander. But as I told you, the geomorphological heritage concern is related also with the, have a relationship also with the biological heritage. In fact, it is widely recognized that the geomorphological processes and landform can play a crucial role in supporting habitat, in supporting species, and in providing ecosystem services. So, for example, in this slide, you can see the mad volcanoes of the Sasse di Nerano Natural Reserve, which are an area protected in protected areas in northern Italy. And these mad volcanoes are one of the best examples of mad volcanoes in Europe, but this area is interesting also owing to the herbaceous plants, a gramineous grass that colonize the mud, the soil around the mad volcanoes. So this particular grass, the so-called Puccinella fasciculata, is protected at at the European level, and is a rare plant that grows only in salt-loving. It's a salt-loving plant. But as I told you, the geomorphological heritage at the same time includes not only geomorphological objects sensu stricto, but include also cultural component with heritage value that is partially determined by the geomorphological context in which they are inserted and they are developed. There are several examples that can be quoted. For example, Petra in Jordan, in which the archaeological importance of the importance of this archaeological site is also strictly linked with the geomorphological features of the area. Or, for example, the Lavaux Terraces vineyards in Switzerland, which is a World Heritage site, inscribed for its cultural, but also for its natural outstanding features that are strictly linked together. So geomorphological heritage can refer to a collection of sites of interest called geomorphosites. Since 2001, the terms geomorphosites proposed by Panizza, certainly the pioneers of this topic and one of our past president of our association, is the most widely used in literature for qualifying landforms that make up geomorphological heritage. But there are also other terms that have been used in the last decade that can be considered as synonymous, such as geomorphological asset, geomorphological sites, geomorphological geotope, or sites of geomorphological interest. But how we can define geomorphosites? Since this time, two main approaches have developed for defining what geomorphosites are: a restrictive definition and a broader one. According to the restrictive definition initially proposed by Grand-Girard, a researcher of the Switzerland scholar, geomorphosites can be defined as landform with high scientific value for understanding the Earth, life, and climate history. So this definition focus with the scientific value of the landform. The larger definition, according to other scholars, propose a larger, broader definition, emphasizing not only the intrinsic and the scientific importance, significance, but also the symbolic value that a landform assume or have assumed. And so in this case, the definition given by the Italian scholar define geomorphosite as a landform to which a value can be attributed, and the value may be scientific, of course, and it should be scientific, but can be also scenic, socioeconomic, and cultural. Of course, the two definition, both definition may be used, and the choice depends on the context. In the context of protection of inventory of sites of exceptional of outstanding scientific value, the restricted definition appears to be more suitable. While in the larger definition, the broader definition, which consider also the symbolic value that the sites can be or have assumed, appear to be more suitable in valorization, in optimization activities, contexts such as, for example, geotourism or educational activities. So sites of geomorphological interest have a scientific value and can have also additional value that can enhance its global value. The Dolomites are proclaimed UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2009, are a good example to illustrate geomorphosites value. This region, universally known for suggestiveness and scientific interest, is characterized by natural landscape unique in the world. From a scientific point of view, Dolomites contain an internationally important combination of earth sciences value. Dolomites are of international significance for geomorphology, but also for geology and for stratigraphy. And the scientific value of this large serial properties are also supported by the evidence of a long history of study and recognition at international level. Concerning the additional values, Dolomite encompasses aesthetic, cultural lato sensu, and socioeconomic outstanding values. The structure, the articulated structures of this mountain range is scenic itself on a larger scale. For this reason, this area, this region has always attracted and had an enormous impact on the imagination of anyone who has visited, and have also inspired any sort of artistic capabilities. So there are many authors, many poetry that have described this mountain, or there are also important painters that have depicted this peak. For example, the Croda da Lago, the mountain that you can see in this slide on the left, was depicted by Tiziano in his painting. This painting that is a presentation of the Virgin in the temple. This is one example, but there are many other examples that can be quoted. Dolomites are described and were visited by many artists, by many scientists. For example, Goethe has visited and described this area. The articulated landscape has of Dolomites, of this UNESCO site, has an exceptional aesthetic value, mainly linked with the variety of forms, the verticality, the monumentality, and the color contrast. And the aesthetic value, of course, is responsible also for the economic interest of this area, of the landform. In the last decade, this area has an economic tourist development has occurred very rapidly during the last decades. Due to its aesthetic, scenic value, but due also to its outstanding scientific value. Then there are other many examples that can be quoted. For example, Aisroku, Uluru in Australia, the Grand Canyon, or the sand dunes in Namib Desert, the Venice Lagoon, and so on. But let's see now what are the main characteristics, because geomorphosites and geomorphological heritage have three main characteristics that make these sites unique and distinctive within geological heritage. These characteristics are mainly the static dimension, the dynamic dimension, and the imbrication of scales. Often the scenic components become central in geomorphosites more than in other categories of geosites, such as the stratigraphical or sites of the petrographical sites. So the marvelous natural scenery, which is essentially a combination of geomorphosites, or more in general, combination of landforms of different ages, of different shape, size, and origin, can facilitate an approach to knowledge and an approach and the awarenesses of the environmental issues to the general public. So the geomorphosites have a great potential also for the development of geotourism activities. Concerning the dynamic dimension, in terms of activity, geomorphosites, again, more than other categories of sites, can be both highly dynamics, the so-called active geomorphosites. I said the sites that allow this kind of sites allow the visualization of processes, geomorphological processes in action, or can be at the same time more static, more sites, the so-called passive or inherited sites that testify past processes, sites that are evidence of past events. There are, according to Pelfine Bollati 2014, there can be recognize also another kind of another state of activity, the so-called evolving passive geomorphosites, an inherited geomorphosites that is rapidly changing, evolving due to active current dynamic condition processes that are different than the processes that have originated the geomorphosites. So we have a site with a very rapid evolution, such as the Badlands morphology, that help us to understand and visualize the geomorphological processes in action, and that can help us to envisage also the landscape evolution, or sites such as this that is a natural arch in Gozo Island that due to its high dynamicity has fall down a few years ago. But we can also define the sites inherited or passive geomorphosites, such as erratic boulder in this case in Switzerland, or frontal moraine in the Dolomites, or sheep rocks that bring us to the past, that have a particular heritage value as record and symbols of the Earth history and evolution. Then we can also define evolving passive geomorphosites. For example, this lateral moraine of the Little Ice Age that is now affected by runoff that is modified by the current active processes. There are the last characteristic that make geomorphosite unique and distinctive is the imbrication of scale. Geosites and in general, but in particular geomorphological sites, do not have any standard size that can be small isolated landforms such as erratic boulder or rocks with the peculiar shapes such as mushroom shapes rocks due to the erosion, but can also have occur in groups of landform forming a large geomorphological landscape. Concluding, as you can see, we have seen geomorphosite and geomorphological heritage are key sites for the comprehension of Earth history and have characteristics and features that make them unique and distinctive, and the definition and the definition of the value and the characteristic is a crucial step for any further activities related to their inventory, to their assessment, mapping, but also for the development of correct and effective conservation, management, and enhancement activities and strategies. Just a short note, if you are interested in this topic, you can contact me and to join our working group. The membership of course is free of charge, and we usually make a sort of network in order to share the researches and the activities that we are in all over the world. From me, it's all. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I'm working in Iraq, and I'm from Iraq, and I'm geologist, but working in archaeology. So that's why my topic actually is related with geomorphology and archaeology. So in Iraq, we have a problem, which is how to recognize between ancient river and ancient canal. I mean, ancient natural river and ancient man-made or artificial canal. So this means so many things for us when we see ancient river and when we see ancient canal, because it has lots of consequences in terms of whether it's man-made or natural. So this is the Iraq and neighboring area, and this is the Mesopotamian floodplain, the famous, in terms of archaeology and civilization. So I'm working on the southern part of Mesopotamia, southern part of Iraq, which is the floodplain of Tigris and Euphrates. So this is the area of my interest. So this is the floodplain here. As you can see, Tigris and Euphrates, the modern Tigris and Euphrates running freely in this floodplain. And I'm always saying that Tigris and Euphrates actually, they are similar to football players when they free to move inside the stadium. So yes, Tigris is here and Euphrates is here, but in the past, actually, you can find Tigris everywhere in the floodplain of southern Mesopotamia, and vice versa. You can see Euphrates everywhere in this floodplain. So that's why it is really hard for archaeologists, for geomorphologists, and for geologists as well to fully understand the past movement or past geomorphology of Euphrates and Tigris. And we can add to that a problem, which is which one is artificial, man-made, and which one is natural, because we have 8,000 years of human occupation to the southern Mesopotamia, when people actually dug lots of canals, irrigation system, and they modified the floodplain. So when we have a satellite image and when we see ancient channel, it's really hard to recognize between the man-made one and the natural one. So that's why actually in my paper, in this paper actually, I took the responsibility, because I'm only the geologist in this department, and I say, okay, I will recognize between the ancient rivers, the natural one, and the ancient canal, the man-made one, using my experience in geomorphology. And I will show you, and I hope you can help me or agree with me or maybe disagree with me. So as I mentioned, we have more than 8,000 sites in this floodplain. Their age or their period of occupation, it's between 8,000 years ago and now. So we have this floodplain actually had been, excessive living, excessive modification. So people during the last 8,000 years actually did lots of things. So they modified the nature. They modified the landscape so much, and we inherited that. And then what we can see now is 8,000 years of changes, and it's really hard, of course, to recognize between the man-made and the natural made, let's say. So you see how many sites in this floodplain. This is my area of interest. And then you see actually how many, let's say, channel. When I say channel, it's mean natural and man-made. So how many channels in this floodplain? Actually, lots of channel. There is no area empty of channel. You can see channels everywhere. But the question is whether this channel is natural or artificial. If it's artificial, then lots of stories actually behind it. If it's natural, okay, that's fine. So this is, the main aim of my paper. Of course, I use different data sets, different types of methodology, starting from geological map, topographic map, SRTM, corona image, digital globe, Landsat, laboratory work, field work, pottery, Orientalist map, historic map, and historical text. So all of these sort of data, actually, I used it just to recognize between the natural river and man-made canals. So whenever I see actually canal or river, I should go to all of these. I should go through all of these types of resources to recognize whether it's man-made or natural. Yeah, so the ability to distinguish between the remaining traces of rivers and those of canal would greatly increase our understanding of water history and management within a given area. Such understanding actually would lead in turn on greatly enhanced understanding of the landscape, social structure, and political life and economy of that area. For the Mesopotamian floodplain, intensive water management activities, together with frequent avulsion of rivers and Tigris River, have rendered channel network complex and interlocked. This complex actually has long confused researchers in regard to channel origin and whether they are natural or anthropogenic, or maybe a combination of the two. It is a challenging task, but the present work propose and discuss 7 key differences between the two types of channel. We have channel pattern, topographic cross-section, crevasse play, meandering, cut-off and expolic, and stream direction. So I used these 6 characters to identify the natural one and the man-made one. For example, actually, river. Yeah, so that one is in terms of channel pattern. Actually, we have in southern Mesopotamia, we have meandering, braiding, anastomosing, and branching. So we have 4 main patterns. That's that one for the natural one. For the man-made one, we have herringbone and dendritic pattern. So two patterns for the man-made and 4 patterns for the natural one. So that one, as you can see in this slide, it is ancient canal and herringbone irrigation system. So whenever we see herringbone, we say, okay, this is a man-made, not natural river. So this is the first character that I use. So the pattern, channel pattern, is a key to recognize between the anthropogenic river and the ancient canal. So as you can see, that one, we have the herringbone pattern. It is a key to recognize the ancient canal, the man-made one, And the other pattern is the dendritic. The dendritic is also a man-made pattern or a man-made channel. So two patterns can be used to recognize the man-made canals. The other key actually is topographic section. So we have, of course, rivers and canal has elevated shape or elevated section in relation to the surrounding area. So ancient river actually has a wide and gentle levees. Then we have a wide and gentle cross section, while canals actually, they have narrow levees and steep or deep slope section. So by using actually this one or this key, we can recognize between which one is man-made and which one is natural by using the cross-section. So the canals, actually, the man-made one has a narrow and steep slope, while the natural one has a wide and gentle. The other thing is that the crevasse play. So whenever we have a crevasse play close to the channel, then we say it is natural, not a man-made. And I used this key, and I tested several times, and I compared it with, Ottoman and another map, and that's proof. So whenever we have crevasse play, then we have a natural one. Yeah, meandering is the fourth key, and whenever we see a meandering ancient channel, then we say, okay, it's natural. And when we see a straight canal, then we can say it is ancient. So this is an important key for our work, because we can see both of them in the satellite image. One is meandering and one is straight. So from the first look, we can say, okay, that one is a natural one, just a normal natural river, and the straight one actually is man-made or anthropogenic canal. Yeah, the other thing is that the cutoff or the expolate. Of course, these features always associated with a natural river, not with the man-made canal. So whenever we see oxbolate or cut-off feature, then we can say this one is actually a natural river. And if you have a channel without meandering, without oxbolate, without crevasse play, then we can say it is a man-made. The sixth key feature actually is stream direction. Always the natural rivers, natural channels actually are following the gradient or the slope in Iraq from north to the south. So if we have a channel running generally from north to the south, then we can say it is a natural one. But sometimes actually we have canals were dug or running not against, but actually not parallel to the gradients. Then we can say that canal actually was dug deliberately by the people, and they need to get water to another land. So that's why they dug it maybe not parallel to the gradient. So we used this key actually to recognize between the natural channel and the man-made canal. Yeah, and in conclusion, actually, as the present study demonstrated, the process of distinguishing between rivers and canal may require a closer consideration of geomorphological features and surface properties. From an examination of the key differences in channel pattern, topographic cross-section, crevasse play, marshes, meandering, cut-off and expoliate, and the direction of stream, it does appear to be possible to determine whether the origin of a channel is natural or anthropogenic. An additional conclusion is that these key differences can be applied actually to any area within the Mesopotamian floodplain for the purpose of distinguishing between these features. So in my paper, actually, I hope that I were useful as a geomorphologist working in archaeology to present something to them. So yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy for any question.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to present this paper on the drainage evolution of the largest delta system in the world, the Ganga-Brahmaputra Delta. And this is the location of the concerned area. It is shown in this within this white box. And this is the situation of the Ganga and the Brahmaputra Delta. And this delta region is developed during the Holocene, and it is surrounded by these structural uplands like Chotanagpur Plateau and Meghalaya Plateau, which are obviously associated with the ancient Gondwana land. And this delta is nestled within the Bengal Basin, and its development was started along the opening of the gap between these two structural uplands during the Pliocene-Pleistocene. And it is the time when the Ganga and Brahmaputra, along with their tributaries, started to enter the Bengal Basin. And this is the physiographic setting of the region, where you can see the general elevation of the delta proper is about 0 to 25 meters, with the regional stroke towards south and southeast. And this is basically showing the late Holocene growth of the lower delta as suggested by Allison and team in way back in 2003. And these successive overlapping deltaic lobes, as you can see from west towards east, these are associated with progressive shifts of the Ganga, Brahmaputra and the combined Ganga-Brahmaputra flow. And these progressive shifts are basically indicating the eastward shifting of the delta as the time goes. So these square boxes are basically showing the distributary optics in the Indian, or I must say the western part of the Ganga Delta. And this is obviously the oscillating course of the Ganga River, which is the parent river for many of the distributaries of this region. And this is basically showing the arrangement of the past and present river courses at the Ganga Delta apex region, where the previous bank lines of the Ganga are shown by using this black dashed lines here. And there are some cultural imprints of these previous courses, like this ancient jetty, which was formed about 1,000 years ago, or this bridge, remnant of the bridge, which was abundant about 200 years ago. And Ganga, as I have told earlier, is frequently changing its course and consequently affecting the optics for most of its distributaries. And you can see here, this is the situation, this is the schematic representation of the optic of the largest distributary of the Ganga system, the Bhagirathi Hooghly. And here the acute angle, normally it assists the intake of the discharge from the main channel, while the obtuse angle, it is preventing the discharge entry. Here, the change has occurred from acute to obtuse angle, due to which the Bhagirathi is now practically not getting any kind of discharge during the lean season from its headwater region. Now, this is what happened over the course of time since 18th century until the middle part of the 20th century. And this is now the present situation of the offtake, where you can see that the main flow of Ganga has shifted towards the east here on the top left panel. And because of that, the offtake has become inactive during the lean season. So another offtake point I can show here for the distributary named Bhairav, and you can see that the river, the river is practically getting out of different offtake points for every mapping years. And this river, although it is getting constricted day by day, still receives some amount of discharge from the Ganga even during the lean season. So this is the lean season situation of the Bhairav offtake, while this is the monsoon or the rainy season situation. So these are some of the profiles surveyed across the Bhairav offtake. These are showing a very feeble course during the lean season. And in due course of time, the offtake of another distributary named Cholongi has become decayed if you follow these panels one by one. And this is the situation of the Bhairav and Jolongi confluence, where you can see that the Bhairav continues to flow naturally, while the Jolongi has turned into a degenerated course completely. Now, Mathabhanga, another distributary located right at the border, its offtake is located right at the boundary of India and Bangladesh. and its offtake region is showing similar degradation. And consequently, 160 kilometer downstream of this offtake point, the dissipation of the Ichamati headwater region has occurred, as the inflow from Mathabhanga is completely going into the other bifurcating channel during the lean season. And you can see the raised bed of the Ichamati at its headwaters due to siltation. And the season-wise photographs confirm that this offtake region only remains active during the rainy season, which is between June to October in this part of the world. So apart from the active or seasonally active distributaries, the delta has many paleochannels, most of which are cut off at their headwaters and become confined due to various types of human activities. So now comes the story of the cutoffs. So all these cutoffs from the Bhairav Jalangi system were developed prior to any surveyed or mapping database, and their widths are much bigger than their much greater than their proximal channels. And similar situation can be found for the Ichamati course. And you can see the difference here in this series of oxbow lakes. The size of oxbows indicates their relative age, gradual degeneration of the river. And the easternmost cutoff here, the I-18, coded by I-18. So this cutoff has 20 times more cross-sectional area as compared to the present river course. Now, there are many paleochannels present in this particular delta, and bigger paleochannels like Jamuna exhibit the same kind of scenario as far as the cutoff developments are concerned. Now, the situation of Bhagirathi Hooghly is completely different, as it is aided by a feeder canal, and this feeder canal started functioning in 1975, since 1975, and it is carrying the significant amount of Ganga discharge to the Bhagirathi Hooghly channel. So as a result of that, still the river is getting substantial part of the discharge, Ganga discharge during the lean season. And you can see here, prior to the augmentation and post the augmentation, the cutoff developments are still there. So it is the latest cutoff development that occurred between 2007 and 2013. And you can see here the right cutoff, the right one, the eastern one, it was formed before the augmentation of the river by the feeder canal, while the left one, this BH10, was formed during the post-augmentation period. But the cross-sectional configuration, if you see that these cross-sections of the present and the previous channels, these show marked similarity. Now, the comparison between the widths of these cutoffs and the proximal distributary courses reveal that the wider present channels can be seen for the Bhagirathi course as compared to the cutoff channels, which is completely different for the other rivers like Ichamati, Bhairav, Jalangi, etc. And these are showing exactly the opposite scenario. Now, this scatter graph is showing that the apex widths of the cutoffs, now these tend to be greater with their distance from the nearest cutoffs. And if you consider the sinuosity indices and the average channel widths of the rivers, these are showing deteriorating condition of the distributaries, with the exception of course, this artificially resuscitated Bhagirathi Hooghly channel. So not only the rivers are getting encroached by the various activities caused by the human beings. So here sand quarrying you can see, and the brick lanes are there near to the river bank. And this is farming activity which is going on in the river bed. So apart from the various human activities, we have seen large floods in this region. This region is very much flood prone, but even the large flood event like this one that happened during 2000, so even a large flood event like this one could not bring about significant changes in the distributary courses. And the situation of Brahmaputra is quite a bit different, with the main channel has largely occupied its courses within the delta by switching 6 times during the Holocene period itself. And the last avulsion that occurred about 170 years ago. So avulsion is the sole cause of switching across these different corridors for this particular river. Now, this is the regional setting of the latest avulsion event that occurred 170 years ago. And in the C panel, you can see the presently acquired course of Brahmaputra from north to south, and it is locally known as Jamuna. And on the eastern side of it, the old Brahmaputra course can be seen, which is a very tiny one. And this is a clearer representation of the avulsion site, where you can see the 18th century course and the present course together. So from these panels, you can see how the westward shifting, the Brahmaputra channel, how it is shifting westward. And it has practically engulfed the lower portion of the Tista River between 1830 and 2014. So thereby pushing the confluence locality northward. So this has occurred about 50 kilometers upstream from the avulsion location. And this schematic diagram is basically showing that the westward moving Brahmaputra got captured by a bifurcated channel of the Tista distributary system here in this panel, B1 panel, this Konai. The Konai has captured this westward moving Brahmaputra channel, and this has practically initiated the avulsion. So this particular event was strengthened by high monsoonal discharges around the same time when the main flow of Tista practically broke into the Brahmaputra channel. Now these maps are indicating the gradual deterioration of the eastern old Brahmaputra and the enhancement of the western Jamuna channel. The avulsion scenario has become more prominent in the middle part of the 19th century, and it was largely completed in the earlier part of the 20th century, as you can see here. Owing to the steeper hydraulic gradient and probably supported by the surge in the monsoonal flow during the middle part of the 19th century, the Jamuna has become the principal passage for carrying the Brahmaputra discharge. Whereas the old Brahmaputra, as you can see here in the last panel and the penultimate panel, so the old Brahmaputra now remains cut off from the main channel during the drier parts of the year. And you can see the change in comparative breadth of the narrowest section of the present Jamuna and the old Brahmaputra channels near the avulsion location. And you can see there is 18 times difference if you compare the widths of the Jamuna channel and the old Brahmaputra channel. Now, these panels show the change of the Jamuna from a single threaded meandering channel into a braided one. And this is a location of about 100 kilometers downstream from the avulsion node. And this is showing that there is not much change that occurred in the outfall locality of the Jamuna into the Ganga. The width of Ganga did not alter much even after the augmentation of discharge from the Jamuna. And these panels are showing the degeneration of the lower stretch of the old Brahmaputra just above its confluence with the Meghna, as its discharge got diverted earlier through the Jamuna and now through the Shitalaksha channels. And from these digital elevation models, the 18th century extent of the previous Brahmaputra channel prior to its avulsion can be seen here, as indicated by the presently misfit valley of the old Brahmaputra. This is a tiny stream, the white one. It is the old Brahmaputra, and you can see the imprints of the previous valley of the Brahmaputra. Now, the mean annual monsoonal discharge of the Brahmaputra is shown here for a site of about 2 kilometers upstream from the avulsion node. And these data were derived from the tree ring analysis and the instrumental records. Now, obviously, the years are annotated for rainy season discharge of above 55,000 cumecs. And obviously, these spikes, if you follow my cursor, these spikes are obviously showing the high discharge years and practically indicating the avulsion period between 1770s and 1850s. So therefore, we can see that the offtakes of these distributaries have been affected by the offtakes of the distributors have been affected by the shifting of the Ganga channel and subsequent silt deposition. Whereas the distributaries of the Ganga system is becoming constricted day by day, and it is supported by the fact that the width of the oxbow lakes are associated with these distributaries are many times greater than the width of the proximal channels. And obviously, complete decay of some of the distributaries can also be related with the anthropogenic activities. And there is only one exception, that is the artificially resuscitated Bhagirathi Hooghly River, which is still an yearly active, year-round active river, and it is aided by the supply of Ganga discharge by a feeder canal. Okay, and I'm so sorry. And for Brahmaputra, sorry, and for Brahmaputra, we have seen that the westward shifting main channel of the Brahmaputra was captured by a bifurcated channel of the Tista distributary system in the late 18th century, and it triggered this latest avulsion event. And the southern portion of the captured flow, it is referred locally as Jamuna. It has become the present passage of the Brahmaputra in Bangladesh since the mid 19th century, and it has resulted the degeneration of the old Brahmaputra channel now. So thank you once again. Thank you all for your patience hearing.
And thank you very much. I'm grateful to my colleagues from all over the world, particularly thank you very much from the President of International Association of Geomorphology, Professor Mauro, and Vice President of IAG, Professor Sunil, coordinate this event, South and West Asia. And thank you very much from all of participants in all over the world to participate in these events, and particularly great thanks from respected speakers to present variety subjects from anthropology, geomorphology, geodiversity, geomorphosite, soil geomorphology, geomorphological hazard, and drainage pattern. Thank you very much. The presentation was very useful and helpful for me, and I think for all of participants in these events. And thank you again from Sunil, my colleagues from India. And the last, I would like to wishing a peaceful world without war, oppression and attack. And thank you again. Thank you for participants. Sunil?
Yes, thank you, Adel. In fact, it was a beautiful the session of the International Geomorphology Week. We had all six speakers, as Adel already told. But we have tried to accommodate as many speakers from our IAG national scientific member countries in our jurisdiction, South and West Asia, and also one from Europe, Professor Paola. So I would like to thank some of the senior geomorphologists, those who are present throughout the day. Number one, our President, Professor Mauro Soldati, Professor Takashi Oguchi from Japan, and Adel, I am not giving you separate thanks. Professor Monique Fort from Paris, Professor Niki Evalpedo from Greece, Professor Shunando Bandopadhyay, he is the present president of the Indian Institute of Geomorphologists, Professor Robert Wasson from Australia, Professor Nurul Islam from Bangladesh, and all other participants, those names I did not mention.